Welcome to your final time to listen to me roar. We're going to go over the final review today. I'm going to show you where it's located. I am not writing down the questions because you can open up a laptop or a computer in front of you and look at them. Some of you have already found it and printed it out. If you go to modules and just scroll down, it's right there. Click on that bad boy. So, before I go through it, let's tell you what you can expect and take like strategies, how you can do well in this class, on this one, final. So, Math 21, final review. You have 10 questions. They are broken up into 2 questions on confidence interval. One for proportion and one for mean. Then you will have 8 questions on hypothesis test. We've covered 8 hypothesis tests in this class. For our 1 sample test, we have done the 1 proportion test and the 1 mean test. H naught for a 1 proportion test is P equals some number. The mu, the H naught for 1 mu is P, or not P, mu equals some number. Those were our 1 sample tests. Then we had our 2 sample tests. We had a 1 paired test, not 1 paired, 2 paired test, a 2 means test, and a paired test. You have a couple ways you can do each not on this. The way people like to do this is the very first page. You haven't missed a whole lot. The practical way for doing it would be P1 is great, or P1 equals P2 for H naught. StatCrunch used P1 minus P2 equals 0. And if you write that, I'm not going to mark you off for that. That's fine too. That's what you saw a lot, so it's fine. Either one of those works. You don't have to show both, just show one. For the means test, it was mu1 equals mu2, or mu1 minus mu2 equals 0. Paired had the same setup. Paired has same as 2 mu. And also they had mu d equals 0. And if you use mu d needs to be in the form mu1 minus mu2. But you don't have to use mu d. You can use mu1 minus mu2 or mu1 equals mu2. HA has those inequalities, so it's a necessity to label your groups one and 2 so that they match HA. I'll pause, let you guys get caught up in that, and we'll talk about the 3 or more samples. This is 5 of the 5 of the 8 already. There's a reason why I'm going over these. 3+ samples. The first one we had was goodness of fit. Well, we did it last, but it's the first one in the book. GOF, I like to abbreviate it as. And H naught for goodness of fit is in an abbreviated form, observed matches expected. When we go through the actual test, I'll be a little bit more wordy, but I'm just trying to summarize what each of the H naughts are here on this front page. We also had the chi-square test for independence. The chi-square test for independence, this was our table one. This has to have a table. And it was rows and columns are independent. Finally, we had our ANOVA one way. This was the only one with means on it. Means for 3 or more. H naught here was mu1 equals mu2 equals ... up to mu k, where k is 3 or higher. The symbol for chi-square is a cursive looking X with the 2 above it. That's what you call classy, right? There you go. Everyone ready? Except Johnny? Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm not kidding.
Holy shit.
And if you want to continue, it'll be on.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Go ahead.
You're fucking writing in calligraphy? What the fuck's going on over here?
Try.
Don't rely on
Let me
calligraphy.
get a picture of it now. Go ahead.
So, what you're expected on the test to do. For the confidence interval questions, and we will give you examples for each of these, give the statement of confidence. Everything you need will be provided. For the hypothesis test, there's a few things you need to do. A, tell me what type of test is needed. I would recommend you use some abbreviations. And I will use them myself. You can say 1p, 1 mu, 2p, 2 mu, paired, GOF, chi-squared, and ANOVA. You don't need a full sentence, just write down the thing, circle it. And it'll show me, that way I know you know what test is used. I'm off the screen. B. Give me H naught and HA. Here, label the groups as necessary. For one proportion and one mean test, you don't need to. There's only one group. Don't have to label them. All the other ones, you should label group 1 and group 2. See? You should compare p-value and alpha. Which will be provided. No computers are necessary. And when you compare p-value and alpha, give me the verdict. If you tell me the verdict here and your statement, the next step doesn't match, I at least know you know what the correct verdict was. So this is like reject H naught, support HA. Or do not reject H naught. Do not support HA. I think one of the most interesting things about test day, Angel, I know it's your birthday. My morning class, one of the students is bringing cake pops. So I'm gonna have birthday cake, a cake on your birthday.
I think someone is.
I even told them a student in my evening class had their birthday and said I should bring a cake. And I said, I'm not. She's like, you want me to make a cake? I'm like, yeah, sure. Make him a cake. I promise that we'll make it to him. We'll see if there's a cake for you.
Right.
If there's an extra cake pop, I will save it for you.
Don't go out of here. If you have to eat it, then
I don't have to do anything.
eat it.
What?
It'll be sitting there calling you. It's gonna be sitting there staring.
I can resist one cake pop.
I don't know.
I'm already half, right? You're right, depends. She told me how she's making it. She's making the cake. She's gonna make the cake regularly, then she's gonna like mush it all up. Then mix it in with homemade frosting to make it so that it's gets the ball shape. Put those in the freezer so they like get hard. and then dip them in chocolate.
That sounds amazing.
This sounds fucking phenomenal. I said, make as many as you want, and she's like, hey, should I bring one for everyone? I'm like, I don't care, as long as I get one, I'm happy. So she's like, oh, wait, I need two. If I go home to tell my wife that I had one and I didn't bring her one, she could be mad. So she's gonna at least have two for me, but she sounded like she's gonna make a bunch, and I'll be like, Angel needs a birthday cake one. All right. Finally, statement of conclusion. It is always, 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 always about HA. Do not reference H naught in it. You are going to lose a shitload of points if you do. I can't say that any clearer. If you make your statement of conclusion about H naught, it means you don't know what the hell's going on with hypothesis testing. I can't tell you how many students go through this and then say, we support H naught or we don't support H naught. No, we never support H naught, ever. H naught may be wrong, we just don't reject it. There's a difference between not rejecting it and supporting it. Like, I reject fascism. That's different than supporting or not supporting fascism. Not supporting that fascism is neutral to it. Right? All right. You guys ready to see some examples? Okay, so knowing this, and here, let me just answer it now. It's coming. I know it's coming. Someone's going to ask me, what's the question everyone wants to know? Who's got the question for me? There it is. No, you can't use your notes. I have made this easy for you by doing all the StatCrunch work for you. What you should do, however, is go through the test immediately when you get it, skim the questions and label them. In fact, start it off by writing down all the different things we're going to do. Write down at the top of your test, CI, proportion, and mean. And then if you want to put hype test, put 1P, 1 mu, 2P, 2 mu, paired, GOF, chi-square, ANOVA. Write down all the tests so you remember what they are. Go through and label each question. There's 8 hypothesis questions, and then we've done 8 hypothesis tests. There is one for each. If you go through and find that you have 2 different ones that say chi-squared, you did something wrong. Right? And I promise you, if you fucking do them one at a time, you're not gonna fucking remember by the time you get to 10 what you did before. So go through them right at the top, and I'm gonna do it with you right now on the review, how I would walk through this exam if I were taking it. Now, it's on Canvas. You can see it in the modules at the bottom. I'm not gonna have it up on the screen. So if you want to look at it, have the questions in front of you on the computer. Because it's easier just to go through it. Are you guys ready to do the walkthrough of the exam? All right, question 1 says, Motorola wishes to estimate the mean talk time for its B505 camera phone before the battery must be recharged. This is an old question. Do they even call them camera phones anymore? No, this is like pre-smartphone shit. In a random sample of 35 phones, the mean talk time was 325 minutes with a standard deviation of 31. It says mean in the problem. mean talk time. StatCrunch generates a 95% confidence interval. This is the confidence interval question for means. I'm gonna write a 1 up here and circle it. If I go through these and can't identify and have a unique number underneath all of them, I'm gonna fuck up the test. So get this done now, go through them and figure out what each question is right away. I'm not even gonna answer that question. We'll come back to the question after we're done labeling them all. Question number 2. A researcher wants to show whether the acidity of rain, or the pH, near Houston, Texas, is significantly different from that near Chicago, Illinois. In a random sample of 12 rain dates in Texas, he found a sample mean pH of 4.77 with a standard deviation of 0.370. Right away, I know this is a problem related to means, okay? And it's a hypothesis test. We've only got a few ones that are hypothesis tests that are means. 1 mu, 2 mu, paired, and ANOVA. There's only a few possible answers here. He's only got 2 locations, Texas and Illinois, which means it's got to be probably be narrowed down to 2 mu or paired. It told me, it gave me mean already, and it gave me 2 groups, so I know it's one of these 2. Then it says 12 rain dates in Texas, and then in a random sample of 14 rain dates in Illinois. That tells me this is number 2. 2 mu is question number 2. Because if it's a paired test, the sample size needs to be the same. These don't have the same sample size, so it can't possibly be a paired test. That makes sense? I want you to realize right now the questions are going to be in a different order. Don't think you can just fucking memorize the order of the questions they appear on the practice final and think the hypothesis test and shit like that are gonna be in the same order on the actual exam. If you do that, you will fail.
Are they the same question?
No. What?
Same idea.
It's the same idea, but why would I give you the, I'm not walking through the final, I'm walking through a practice final. That's bigger balls than asking for notes. I approve, Michaela. It can't hurt to ask. What?
My professor.
I'm calling absolute 100% bullshit.
Ask my kid.
One professor is not all of your professors.
You can ask my chem professor. I dropped out for class, but
If their practice exam is identical to the final.
the questions that are on the practice exam will be on the exam.
I'm betting that's not factually correct. The numbers might be changed or slightly different, but if they're asking you, like, they're giving you the questions ahead of time,
He gave us constitutional law gave us the final and then
Yeah, they-
practice and then and it was the same order, same test, everything.
My teacher asked us that too, but he goes over, he doesn't just give you the answer, he goes over the concept. That way you get the concept, but the answer he basically does say during the little lecture like that.
And ours are the answer.
does it tell you it's gonna be the same?
What professor is it?
This is terrible.
Barry?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it's the same one.
Yeah.
Because he wants us to learn, he doesn't want.
But then that's not learning at all. That's teaching you how to recite like monkeys. You are not learning how to fucking think at all. That is terrible.
We'll see for a class like ET, you gotta memorize that stuff. 'Cause
You've got to memorize that stuff, but
It's-
giving you the exact same questions in the exact same order is fucking terrible. At least change the goddamn order. If you're gonna be a lazy fuck, and that's what it is, being a lazy fuck and not coming up with a new test,
Yeah,
at least change the goddamn order. And don't tell the students ahead of time, this is what your final, this is identical to your final. I bet you still not every student passes that fucking final. I've had some math teachers have done this as a test. It's a theory. They're like, I bet if I told them and showed them the fucking final, They still couldn't do it. And they were right. Like most of the students, like 75% of the students failed the final and shit like that. I have greater respect for your intelligence than your other teachers. I know you are capable of learning this shit and not needing the exact same questions handed to you. You're not fucking kindergartners. Goddamn adults, presumably. Halloween is close.
Still all of these things.
Still not old enough to drink, so,
But you're old enough to go to war though.
right? All right, question number 3. A medical researcher, God, I'm fucking disgusted right now. Are you fucking like? That needs to be someone's fucking test or stats presentation one semester. I'm gonna have students survey fucking teachers and go, do you give the final exam as a practice final? And see what percentage of students, teachers do this. Because it's fucking terrible. It's just flat out disrespect for you. And they're trying to bump their fucking numbers. That's all it is.
That makes them look like a better teacher?
It makes them look like a better teacher than they are. They hand feed you the answers and say it's in this order. You could fucking memorize A, B, C, D, E, A. That's fucking terrible. No self-respecting teacher does this shit. That's like. All right, number 3. A medical researcher, which is, God damn it. Fucking Michaela. This is all you, Michaela. You brought this shit on me. A medical researcher wishes to try 3 different techniques to lower cholesterol levels of patients with high cholesterol levels. The subjects are randomly selected and assigned to one of 3 groups. There's 3 groups. So, well, hold on. Let's. It might be ANOVA.
Yeah.
It's gonna be either Goodness of Fit, chi-squared, or ANOVA. We're gonna let's get to the question first. It probably is ANOVA. I see the chart here. It says at the end of 6 weeks, each subject's cholesterol is recorded. The researcher wanted to compare the difference in the means. ANOVA is the only means test for 3 or more. It is ANOVA. Number 4. A simple random sample of 320 adults was asked their favorite ice cream flavor. Of the 320 adults surveyed, 58 responded that they preferred mint chocolate chip. Testing the claim that less than 25% of adults prefer mint chocolate chip ice cream in StatCrunch generates these values. Okay, so there's only one group. They surveyed one group. And they gave us a percentage. They even said 58 out of 320. This looks like a proportion, and there's only one group, so this is the one proportion test. I'm gonna do this statistical test. I'll send it out as not like just a StatCrunch thing where they can respond, where they don't have to like say their name. So they can respond anonymously, truthfully, that yes, they're a shitty teacher. It won't be worded that way. It will be worded, do you give the final out ahead of time? All right. That was number 4. Really got under my skin on that one. If I ever do it, it's a fucking mistake. It was an accident. I fucking printed the wrong one. It's happened. One semester it happened. It's not happening this semester. I can guarantee you that. I don't think it's gonna help you guys. The way after what I saw with the midterm, where you had open fucking notes and still most people failed the midterm.
I feel like the midterm's still good.
Midterm is definitely harder than the final.
Yeah.
Okay, number 5, according to the Insurance Information Institute, the mean expenditure, this tells me it's a mean one. I like it already. The mean expenditure for auto insurance in the United States was $774 in 2002. An insurance salesperson believes that the mean expenditure for auto insurances is different now. He obtains a random sample of 35 policies. There's only one group and its means. This is the 1 mu test. I probably can't lead the survey with the question. The title is, "Are you a shitty teacher?" That will probably turn them off. I need to put a whole bunch of other questions in there and slip that in as just a one innocuous question out of like 15 or 20. That way they won't know the real purpose of the survey.
How many people think they're not a shooting teacher and do the people plan as a practice?
Right.
How many people pass your class?
That's a good thing. What is your average pass rate? That's a good question. All right, number 6. Nationally, the distribution of weapons used in robberies is as shown in the table. And it's got weapon, and it says proportion, gun, knife, strong arm, and other. So there's 4 groups, and it's a proportion. That narrows it down to either goodness of fit or chi-square. The following data represents the weapon choice of robberies on school property. Does the distribution of weapon choice in robberies in schools follow the national distribution? Says use alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. StatCrunch yields a chi-square of 511. I'm going to tell you right now on the actual test, none of them are going to say chi-square. They're not going to say T-stat, F-stat. They're just going to say test stat. And the reason why is, first off, chi-square makes students get goodness of fit wrong every fucking time. They see chi-square, they assume it's a chi-square test for independence, and then they give me 2 chi-square tests for independence, because 2 of them on this test say chi-square.
Actually, good trick.
What?
That's a pretty good idea to make people know the difference between
Right.
real and chi-square.
And if I don't put that, if I just put the words test stat is, then you're not prompted with information. Like the T ones say T, that's kind of a giveaway that it's a means. You should be able to read the problem and figure out what's going on. That's why we're walking through them, like how to think this shit out. Any ideas on whether this is a goodness of fit or chi-squared?
I think it's a good split, because you have like proportions that kind of compare with, right? Because you have observed and you have the expected proportion.
I'm leaning towards that too. Does anyone disagree? Does anyone think this might be a chi-square? I'm gonna put chi-squared down as well, just in case. I'm not sure. I want to be certain. Like, not every student is gonna be certain. But for now, when I get through the test, well, like, what one of these will shine as fucking. Because chi-square, what's chi-squared have on it? What's the H naught for chi-squared? The rows and columns are independent. I only got 1 row here. So I mean, I'm leaning more towards that. That's what I'm leaning towards. I'm pretty sure it's a goodness of fit, but I'm going to go through them and just make sure. Number 7. An auto dealer decided to enroll in salespeople in a training program to help increase sales. Here are the sales for each salesperson in the month before the program and the month after the program. And it's got A through H, what is that, 8 people? Before and after. At the 0.05 level, test the claim that the sales program is effective in increasing sales. Before and after, there's 2 groups. I've only got 2 tests left that are for 2 groups, 2 proportion and paired. There's nothing in this that indicates proportion, and the before and after screams paired. You're comparing before and after. Paired should be number 7. Don't worry, Angel, everything that you miss will be on the recording. Right now, we're just breaking down what each question should be before we actually do the test. Number 8. Zoloft is used to treat OCD. In randomized double-blind trials, 926 patients diagnosed with OCD were divided into 2 groups. I have only one test left. That's 2 groups. 2P. I don't even need to finish it. But I can skim through it, and near the bottom it says, do a higher proportion of subjects, says proportion, kind of like locks in that 2P. Number 9. A sample of 400 high school students revealed that 176 have a Facebook account. StatCrunch generates a 95% confidence interval for the proportion. This is our proportion confidence interval 1. So it looks like we're down to goodness of fit and chi-squared being either 6 or 10. When I look at 10, a random sample of 100 COS students produced the following results concerning food preferences. And it's got males and females, and then Italian, Chinese, and Mexican food. This is a table. This is one of the contingency tables ones. This is our chi-squared. So this is number 10, and Angel was correct. The goodness of fit was number 6.
Was I right to say that that's like the proportion is something they're comparing?
Yeah, it was observed versus against expected. Your reasoning was correct. I just wanted to walk through it like I didn't know that it was correct. So as many students will do, you don't know it's correct, walk through it and verify. When you get down to the end, I'm gonna cross off that 6 right there. You should have one number listed for each thing. If you've got the same number listed more than once, you should go check them and see what's going on, because one of them is wrong. Or if you have, if you have the same category listed for 2 different ones is a better way. If you have like 2 proportion is 8 and 9, you got something wrong. All right, let's go through the actual test. I'm going to go back to question 1 now that I've got them all labeled. Did this at the start. If you do it right at the top of the page and label them underneath there, you're doing great. All right, when you get to the question, tell me what the test is. Number 1 was a 1 mean confidence interval. What it's looking for here, it says what population parameter is being examined here. What does this tell us? We are looking for a statement of confidence. You should indicate whether it's a mean or proportion in there. And I can pretty much jack the question. It says the mean talk time for its V505 camera phone. We are 95, is it 95%? Yeah, it says 95%. Always check what confidence interval it says. We are 95% confident that the mean talk time for Motorola V505 phones is between, it gives me the lower limit, it says 314.35. That's in minutes. Because it tells you the mean is in minutes, the standard deviation is minutes. So 314.35 minutes, and the upper limit is 335.65 minutes. That's all you need on that question. It tells me it says it as we are 95% competent. It tells me it's about the mean. It tells me what the limits are. And it says it in an intelligent format.
So we just make a statement for it, for the confidence intervals, we make statements for it.
That's all you need for the confidence interval ones. The proportion one, we'll say proportionate, and I'll talk about the proportion. We'll get to that one in a little bit. That one's on nine, it'll be a while, that's number 9. Do you have your computer or anything with you?
I have my phone.
You might wanna sit next to Melinda, she's got the questions in front of her. You can look at the questions, you can see the questions, because I'm not posting the questions each time. Number 2. Number 2, we tag as the 2 mean test. 2 mu. Actually, it's like close to break time and someone just walked out for a break. Let's take a 5-minute break. If people need to go to the bathroom, you know, it's a good break time. Since someone already went. Sure. Alan, you said no break for you.
Never a break, no rest for the weary.
No rest for the weary. That's not a phrase. There ain't no rest for the wicked. If money don't grow on trees. I got bills to pay. I got mouths to feed.
And that's what. And then I was going to do like.
Well, yeah, we agreed that it was gonna be a 50-50, but we said if you want to get.
Okay, then I should. I'll take it off.
You just put deciding our sample size of 50.
Oh, yeah. But everything else, like, and then I would be the one. Slide this one, this one. And then.
We can go over that.
Because I showed them on mine.
The fucking bag get bigger.
Why?
Yeah.
We wanted to see it.
Angel, do you have a big enough bag? Can you carry everything and like, if you, everything in your trunk fit?
Things about.
It looks mostly empty because it's folded down, but it's like, I'm prepared in case I wanna bring more shit.
Yeah. When I read it, there again, you can see. When I read it, I think, well, they're trying to look for a gender difference. Right? So when you ask why, that I kind of already get why. That's this right here. is why. Gender
I might,
difference.
it's like showing as a Word document and I had a knockdown, but.
So-
Apology of words that.
Yeah.
I expect meltdowns from you, it's okay.
Why could be, why did we choose?
I knew about the meltdown thing a long time ago.
Why did we choose a chi-square rather? That could be why, but we would have to present the assessment first and answer. Does that make sense? Why that test?
Did you guys all see the announcement with the Prezi presentation?
This question, that makes sense.
Did you guys see the announcement with the Prezi
So
presentation?
I'm thinking.
Look at the announcements. We'll do it at the end of the test. I'll give you through it.
Why it's like as if we're presenting like a person or something, right? We should be presenting this like as if we're actually like scientists trying to, I don't know, say something to people, right? We're trying to present our data. So I like how we're like showing our question, right? But with our data question, we should have our hypothesis on there. So we gotta show people like what test we did, what's our hypothesis. Yeah, that's up here, right? But we shouldn't have just our data question and then just explain why we asked that question or something. People can look at this and be like, okay, that's why.
So much. That's why.
I think you're just going about it the wrong way. So to introduce, you could introduce.
Pretty judgy, isn't he? Just fucking slap the shit out of him, just backhand.
Just like, tell me like, how should I?
I'm
switch
taking
this
it, I'm
up?
taking it as serious as I should, right? It is a final project.
Now you have to clear.
Okay, so. So this is our first slide, right? And then we'll go to the next one. Go to our first data question. So we're trying to get that time, right? Then we get here and we go utilize our sample size is 151, random places, ask anyone different times, and then why, good topics to answer the questions. But when I read that question, I can already see why we're not. Is there a gender difference in time play? Like when I read it, even though the guy doing the project, right, instead of like different times, they could describe it. What
I don't
if
think
like
it's different times. The why is like, the reason why you're asking is you're fucking curious about it.
Yeah,
That's like self-explanatory, you don't need why.
I was trying to tell her like, well, why we did a high square for this set of methods. Like we should explain to people why we use this case over all the other ones.
So you're gonna do that, you need to say what kind of answers they would give. Here would be, we ask them. Console, mobile.
So the first question was time plate, so it's more, less than, or not at all, or to know.
Oh, you're right.
Do not play video games at all, or more or less.
So that should be what you put there.
She had it up here, and I was like, well, if you're gonna start with this should be up here.
Go back to slide number 2.
I'm thinking.
I don't even know that you need slide number 2. You're looking at seeing slide number 3 says slide number 2 is irrelevant.
What we could do for the process is explain what questions we ask, their responses, and then later on, to get into here, tell them what our actual data was. What test we used, why we did it, what test, we did chi-square.
Okay, so in the intro, slide 1. That's slide 1. Next, okay, slide 2. You need another slide before this, say, we did 2 tests, both about video games. One was on playtime, one was on system use. That way they know what's coming.
That's what, yeah, we're trying to introduce our study to people, so what did we do? What question did we ask, that kind of stuff, we want them to be in the know, right? Later on, we can get into why and what our sample size was and all that stuff, that's over here with the data.
That sample size shows up right there.
You're just, but you want to introduce people to our study, so like how much, what questions, how we try to make it random. Yes, cause that goes with our data. Like what question did we ask? It was this, right? Is there a gender difference between? The questions you have.
What you can do, the process you did apply to both.
Yeah.
Test that you do, the process you. Even for the first question. You could say we did multiple tests on video games.
And then.
So I would like,
include.
so I would do like this slide, the data question slide, say,
Yeah.
we had multiple questions on video games. We each asked approximately 50 people. I like that you bullet pointed random places, ask anyone different times, it shows how we're gonna have time to do this simple random sample. You might list a couple of questions. Yeah. And then they can see what kind of questions you ask, and then you go, all right, the first test we wanted to look at was,
So that's what I have on the slide. Oh, well, actually, I'm gonna change it, but I.
I'm
But I
right.
put all these here, and then I was like, the next slide for this question.
yeah, that's good. Okay, so go back to the other one, the third, where the one, next one.
Oh,
That one should go before, after the process, well, it doesn't,
For all the data, go for
all the data, but you can do the process first.
Yes, yes.
Correct. But the slide before that one says data question.
so then, but that's one before.
Yes. Because it's talking about all the questions you ask and ask yourself.
Yeah.
It even said, in fact, I would change it from intro to sample of questions. Something like that. That way they know what kind of you're doing.
This one. It shouldn't be specific to one set of data, it should be very tentative. Conservative.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, that's the question we're
All about it, you're always in present.
Yes, and you can still do that up here.
That is great.
You can go, hey, whatever, it's Angel Kettle, and this start.
All right, let's get this exam finished up. I think break time's been long enough. If I let you guys keep talking until you're done talking, we won't finish the practice exam and then you're all fucked. I think you can appreciate getting this knocked out of the way. So, did I hit pause? I did not hit pause, so excellent. We're gonna have a dead air during the thing. All right, where were we? We were at number 2. It was a 2 mu test. I'm reading it, says Houston, Texas, and Chicago, Illinois. So I've got Texas and Illinois. And I know it's a 2 mu test. So H naught is going to be mu1 equals mu2. Or you can do the mu1 minus mu2 equals 0 if that's of your preference. I need to know what group's what though, because it may matter here. It says he wants to know, does the evidence suggest that the pH of rain in Houston is greater than the pH of rain in Illinois? So the order of the grouping really matters here for HA. I'm going to call Texas group, Houston group, group 1, Illinois group 2. That's all you really need to do to label it. Give something that indicates what that fucking group is. Doesn't need to be a fucking detailed sentence, just a quick 1-word thing so I know what you're talking about. The Texas group versus Illinois, and now I can whip out my HA to match that. Mu1, says this group 1, needs to be greater than mu2. Or mu1 minus mu2 is greater than 0. It gives me a p-value of 0.0197. And it tells me alpha equals 0.05. How does the p-value compare to alpha?
Bigger. Too low.
It's less than, it is not bigger,
Oh, shoot,
it's small.
my bad.
So it's too low, what's our verdict?
Reject the hope.
Verdict is reject the hose, support H naught. Whether you should write this, whether it's reject H naught, support HA, or do not reject, do not support. Because I can't tell you how often students say the verdict and then their statement of conclusion doesn't say the same thing as the verdict. And if I don't see the verdict, I don't know if you know anything about the process, but if you get the verdict right and just fuck up the statement, then I at least know you understood what you were supposed to do, and just like writing in words was no worry yourself. All right, so we're supporting HA HA was Texas was greater than Illinois. And I'm just gonna pull directly from the question. It says that, does it suggest that the pH of rain in Houston is greater than the pH of rain in Chicago? There is sufficient evidence to support the claim. That the pH of rain in Houston is greater than the pH of rain in Chicago. And it's good practice to say the alpha. At alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. I can promise you already, not all of them will be 0.05. That's all you need. You've identified what type of test it is. You gave me H naught and HA with well-defined groups. You compared the p-value and alpha, you gave me a verdict, and you gave me the statement of conclusion. Eight questions are like this, where the only thing that changes is H naught and HA. Right? Ready for number 3? All right, I'm gonna leave that listing up top so I can see it. Number 3 was our ANOVA. Now for ANOVA, we know H naught is that the mu's are equal. And on this problem, it says there are 3 groups. So mu1 equals mu2 equals mu3. HA is at least one is different. At least one mean is different. Here, the groups are already numbered, so you like if the groups are already numbered, you don't really need to number them. It gives me a p-value of 0.011, and it asks for alpha at 0.05. What's our comparison sign here? Less than. What is the verdict for less than? What? Reject H naught, support HA. HA was at least one mean is different. There is sufficient evidence that at least one of the 3 different techniques to lower cholesterol has a different mean than the rest. At alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. Number 4. Number 4 was my 1 proportion test. So the H naught for a 1 proportion is P equals something. This one, it might actually be easier to figure out what HA is first. It says testing the claim that less than 25% of adults. So the proportion should be for HA should be less than 25%. Which means H naught should be equal to 25%. You can put 0.25 if you want. There's only 1 group, so I don't need to label them. P value is 0.0023. Alpha is 0.05. And how do these compare? And what is our verdict? It's too low, so we reject H naught, support HA. That's my verdict. Support HA is that the proportion is less than 25%. And it says less than 25% of adults prefer mint chocolate chip ice cream. That's what I'm going to put. There is sufficient evidence to support the claim. That less than 25% of adults prefer mint chocolate chip ice cream. Oh, at alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. That's just good practice. Let your reader know what standard you set to make this decision. If they don't know what standard you use, you could have been like alpha equals 0.2 and fucking let just almost anything go through. Yeah,
It doesn't reject the whole, how would we write it? We'll write the same question, just saying it does not support the thing.
Yeah, or there's insufficient evidence, or there's not enough evidence, or something like that. One of. I went through this test this morning and all of them said reject H naught. So on number 7, we're gonna change alpha so that we do not reject H naught. On number 7, we're gonna change alpha to 0.01 when we get there, so that you see the other way. Okay? Any questions? All right. Number 5, looks like I've got listed as a one means test. H naught has mu equals something, HA is mu is something different. Let's see what it is on number 5. It says the mean expenditure was $774. That sounds like what our mean was. $774. And now he wants to know, is it different? Different would be not equal.
7:30.
The 735 is just the sample evidence that he gathered. The 774 is what you want here. I'm glad you brought that up. It is important to note that you want to go against what the old information was. You don't want to use what the new value says. So just because he found 735, 735 does not go into the H naught or HA. It is used by the computer to help calculate whether or not what the p-value is. That's where that 735 comes in. That's where the 4831 comes in. It gives us a p-value of less than 0.01. 001. Couple zeros there. And alpha was 0.01 here. Oh, tricksy. Alpha changed up. P-value is less than alpha, so we reject H naught and support HA. That's our verdict. HA was the mean is different than the 774, and I'm just gonna steal what it says in the sentence. There is sufficient evidence to conclude that the mean expenditure for auto insurance is different from the 2002 amount. At alpha equals 0.01 level of significance. Number 6, that was our goodness of fit. So the generic way of saying this is observed matches expected. If you want to be do it right, make it look good. Say the school weapon choices match the national distribution. That's probably a better way of saying H naught on this one. HA would be they do not match. The national distribution. Yeah. My p-value here is less than 0.0001. Alpha is given as 0.05. So our verdict. This is again less than. So we will reject H naught. Support HA. There is sufficient evidence that the weapon choice. I'm actually pulling it, I'm copying this sentence almost directly. That weapon choice in robberies in schools does not follow the national distribution. At alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. All right, number 7. Number 7 is listed as our paired test. So I have a before and I have an after. On this one. This was the sales program one. And they want to know if the sales program is effective in increasing sales. If the sales program is effective in increasing sales, should before be greater than or less than after? After should be the bigger number, right? So after should be the bigger number, the alligator will bite for after. So I'm going to label this group 1 and group 2. This will help me with my H naught and HA. H naught, mu1 equals mu2. HA is mu1 is less than mu2. I'm going to make a quick note and point out if you did after is greater than before and label them as group 1 and group 2, this symbol is going to change. So depending, and this is why you need to label your groups. This would have mu1 is greater than mu2 for HA. So depending on your setup, your HA changes. That's why you got to label. Okay. Let's see. The p-value is 0.0221. It says alpha equals 0.05. As an executive decision, change alpha to be equal to 0.01. Because we don't have any tests on this fucking practice exam that said do not reject. And by having alpha be 0.001, now p-value is greater than alpha. And here we do not reject H naught. Do not support HA. HA was before is less than after, but what HA really was is the sales program effective in increasing sales? So I can just steal the question that says test the claim. I'm going to say there is not enough evidence, or you can say not insufficient evidence, or not enough sounds good, to support the claim that the sales program is effective in increasing sales we changed the alpha, so I'm going to use the alpha that we used. In some of these scenarios, the choice of alpha really says whether or not we're gonna support the claim or not. The p-value is 0.02. If we went with the standard 0.05, we would support the claim. So it's kind of like, how important is that alpha? If it's not life-threatening, or it's not super, like, you don't have millions of dollars of fucking money, or some huge budgets riding on it, use 0.05. There's no reason to go stricter. But for your presentation, use whatever alpha you want. If you want to go as strict as you want. In general, tend to stay with 0.05 unless it's super important where you tighten it down. All right, that was number 7. Was number 8. Number 8 is it says 2P test. My 2 proportion test. And I have a Zoloft group versus a placebo group. When you get through the majority of that paragraph is just giving the numbers that are used in it. That last sentence in the first paragraph really just says what this test is. Do a higher proportion of subjects experience dry mouth who are taking Zoloft versus the proportion taking placebo. Higher would be Zoloft is greater. So I'm gonna say Zoloft is group 1, placebo is group 2. And this allows me to say H naught would be P1 equals P2. Or P1 minus P2 equals 0. And HA for my setup is P1 is greater than P2. Or P1 minus P2 is greater than 0. Again, if you labeled placebo 1 and Zoloft 2, the sign changes. So the group indicator matters. It gives me a p-value of 0.0136 and an alpha of 0.05. P-value is less than alpha, so my verdict is reject H naught, support HA. HA is that Zoloft takers experience dry mouth more, basically. There is enough evidence to support the claim. That the proportion of Zoloft users who experience dry mouth is greater than the proportion taking the placebo. At alpha equals 0.05. There's not a whole lot of difference in these statements, but one is there's enough evidence and one is there's not enough evidence, but they're always about HA. They're never about H naught. I can't iterate or reinforce that enough. Generally, students that do it on one, do it on all. If you fucking reference H naught on all the problems, you're going to score below 70% and fail the final. Because you've done it on 8 questions and just the damage adds up. There's pros and cons to the test being very similar. The only difference for most of these is H naught and HA, right? Some of them we gotta label what group's what, but everything else after that's the same. As long as you know how to do the rest of that, you get the majority of the points on each question. If you don't know how to do that, you lose the majority of the points on that question and all of the, 8 questions and you're fucked.
So is that how we're gonna write out the? That's how we're gonna ask for it, right?
I'm answering it the way I would answer it. This is what I'm giving 100% for. You could have slightly different, you could have different words, but it should say the same similar ideas for whatever the question is. They're not going to be the same questions. I can't state that enough. Number 9 was a confidence interval for P. And it gives 95% confidence interval. So we are 95% confident. Make sure. Who the fuck's calling now? Hold on one second, guys. Hey Tracy, what's up? Okay. Yeah. I think she took 81 for you. Right. All right, I'm in the middle of lecture, so I gotta go. It's okay, I'm glad you're okay. Bye. Confidence interval for one proportion, we are 95% confident. And I'm literally gonna just plagiarize the shit out of that question. That the proportion of all high school students. Who have Facebook accounts. Is between. There's a couple ways you can say this. You can just leave them as the limits that are listed. 0.3914 and 0.4886. Or you can switch this to percentage and say 39.14% and 48.86%. Which is probably, by the way, most humans would read this sentence. Question number 10. Chi-square. Chi-square, the H naught in general is rows and columns are independent. You should probably up your game and make it match what's in this thing though. Food preference is independent of gender. They give you the sentence right in it. Test the claim that food preference is independent of gender. HA is food choice. I'm gonna say choice because it's shorter to write than preference. And gender are dependent. Or you could say, or not independent. Which might be easier for people to remember, independent or not independent. P-value is less than 0.0001. Alpha is listed as 0.05. P-value is less than alpha, so our verdict is reject H naught and support HA. A majority of these on the practice were reject H naught and support HA. Do not assume that for the final. That was just poor planning on my practice exam. There's gonna be some that are do not reject and some that are reject. If we're supporting HA, food choice and gender are dependent. There is sufficient evidence. That food preference is dependent on gender. At alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. Done. I have shown you everything I'm going to show you this semester. Next week, you're going to show me what you've learned. We got our presentations on Tuesday. Our final exam is on Thursday, 1 week from today. The following Tuesday is the official listed time for finals. You can come in and see what you got, say hi or whatnot. You do not have to show up on that day. But I am encouraging you to show up just so you can, if you want to see what you got. I'm supposed to officially hold class on that day. I suspect I'll be sitting here reading the book the whole time. Generally, only 1 or 2 students show up on something like that. I deliberately chose it to do it on Thursday rather than the following Tuesday, because a lot of you are going to have finals on that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. If you're taking 4 or 5 classes and you've got fucking 4 or 5 finals in 3 days, that sucks ass. Having one of the finals the fucking week before means you're not studying for as many for that week. Yeah.
The homework on Pearson, we need to until December or was it?
I don't remember what it says. So take a look.
7.
I want to, for the Prezi thing, I want to show you like a good, this was an A presentation. This group, I think they got an A+. You do not need to use Prezi.
Yeah.
If you get here, if you click the down arrow, they told me what the title said, Halloween candy expenditures, vague. But then they said H naught P was 25, HASP is greater than 25. They told me where they referenced the source that people spend on average more than $25 on candy. They used the wrong symbol here, was the mistake. P should have been mu, not P. This was a means test, so they didn't get 100%, but they got a high score. They decided that $25 seems pretty fucking low. They think it's higher. They picked at least 100 people. They asked, do you celebrate Halloween? Did you celebrate Halloween this year? Were you the one that decided to make the financial purchases? If so, that way they weren't asking someone that like doesn't buy the candy for the house. Like if you don't buy the candy for the house, you're going to say 0 to this question. They didn't want that person. They want to know if you're the person that buys candy for the house, how much did you spend? And this was in 2019 when I had this class. And it was, they said who they targeted. So US consumers, they asked people. They told me their biases. They asked their question at work. They all had their jobs at work. So since they were asking people that were employed, they might be more likely to purchase candy at a higher income because they were all working at decent jobs. So they thought that might affect the outcome of the answers. That is a bias. and may not reflect the US population because not everyone is in that median income group. They felt they were random. They didn't list 2 forms of bias, they only had 1, but they tried to be random. Then they said why they picked it. Say it was Halloween time. They had candy on the brain. They just got done doing Halloween. They had candy on the brain, and so they went with that. Prezi is pretty neat. You don't need to do Prezi. PowerPoint or something simple is easier. This is very catchy. After then they give me the data, the summary stats. They said how many they sampled. They said the mean, the standard deviation. They gave information on the median, the range. And they said that looking at the information, they're just eyeballing here. More was spent than $25. They can see that from the $37.52. I got a pie chart here showing how much was spent. I think these numbers are, I don't know what the numbers are. They didn't fucking say. Maybe the number of people that were in the category. One group spent over $100 on Halloween candy. That's a fucking lot of Halloween candy. Holy shit. Even 60 bucks on Halloween candy. I guess if you got a lot of people showing up. They gave a box plot. There was no outliers. Since they were doing a means test, they checked to see that everything was legit. Their hypothesis test 1. This is a busy slide thing. It's got a lot of information on it. I wouldn't do it as much here. They were very wordy. You can't read this. There's just too much. But they walk through each one. If you want to do something like this where all the steps are on one slide, try to summarize as much as possible and like just say a lot of it verbally. They showed the confidence interval. They even had a nice little pretty plot with their data. They summarized what they did and what they could do to improve. So they asked people at their work. They learned that Tulare County, people spend more money on Halloween than the national average. They found it surprising because Tulare County is one of the highest poverty rates in the state of California. But they even acknowledged in their bias, they were asking people that were in median income range for a lot of it. And then they said what they would do to change their survey if they did it again. They got a lot of pretty pictures and stuff like that. That's kind of like the idea of the presentation. What did you do? A little brief process, a description of what you were aiming for, a summary of the results you got, information on your hypothesis test and confidence interval, what biases you might have had, and then what you learned from the project. This one was kind of long. I think this one took a little more than 10 minutes. It's a little longer than most people do. You can get away with less and still get a very good A. And again, you don't need to use Prezi, but that's in the announcements. And you click, if you want to look at it more later, when you click on it, just push the down arrow on your computer. I don't know that it works on a mobile, but if you're on a laptop or desktop, down arrow on the keyboard clicks through the slide, it advances it. I say in the announcement, it says hit the down arrow. I spell it out. Other than that, oh wait, I need to write this. Get the fuck out. Yeah, I will see you guys on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys do.
If we failed this test, we can still pass if we had everything.
You really think you're gonna fail this test, Melinda? with the grade you got walking into it, you think you're gonna fail it?
No.